Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to give it a few moments as folks log on. Denisha, how are you this evening?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Fantastic. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you both this evening. I'm going to give this maybe until 6:02. I see that attendee number still rising. Come on in, everyone.
It's certainly easier than flying across the country, Denisha, right?
That is true. That is true.
Most definitely. And you're coming to us from Florida, is that right, Denisha?
Yes, North Florida in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm.
It's probably a bit warmer over there than it is in Seattle.
It is. I think it was about like 70, high 70s today. And tonight is probably like around 60 or something. So definitely a little bit warm.
Yeah. That sounds delightful. We're at about 48 over here with rain coming.
I wore long johns when I took a walk today, Denisha.
Well, we get to the 40s. We get to the 40s. And that's like our winter. Like that's
like the depths of your winter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we are on top of 6:02, giving people a few moments. Let's get rolling. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So the first thing I will say is a quick introduction to Washington Policy Center and to the Young Professionals. So my name is Marissa Gaston, and I direct the WPC Young Professionals. For those of you who are not familiar, Washington Policy Center is a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan think tank here in Washington State with offices in Seattle, Tri-Cities, and Spokane. Our 8 research centers span topics from healthcare to the environment to transportation with the goal of advancing free market policy solutions that uplift individuals. And our Young Professionals program exists to educate, engage, and empower the next generation of business, policy, and community leaders across the state. So to speak a little bit more to who YPs are, we are a diverse group of 18 to 39-year-olds who love sound public policy and who believe that the best way to support the dignity of every individual in this state and beyond is by empowering them through skills, community involvement, and an atmosphere of robust market innovation that unleashes the creativity and potential of each person. Further, we believe in removing barriers that limit freedom, innovation, and decision-making. We value individual creativity because we know that it's people and not government who make the world a better place. And we come from a variety of professions, backgrounds, and geographic locations. We embrace civil discussion, cultivate opportunities to educate our members, and employ a policy plus action mindset as we seek ways to make our state a better place to live, work, and raise a family. I'll give you a quick sketch of some of the things that YP does, and then I will talk about our event this evening. So our regular activities include a members-only monthly book club where we've discussed books like Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, like Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington, and like The Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. We've also had panels on hot topics such as our April debate on climate change, governments or markets, how best to address climate change, which was hosted by one of our college clubs. We have 4 of them statewide, but this was hosted by our Gonzaga club. We also had a series of summer socials in Spokane, Tri-Cities, and Seattle covering issues from business to education. And now we are gearing up for our holiday parties in the beginning of December, also in Seattle, Tri-Cities, and Spokane, which I'll give you a few more details about at the end of this event. So stay tuned. I'm very excited about them. But to kind of sum up, we read together, we hike together, we podcast together, and more. For this event tonight, we are joined by Denisha Merriweather and Finne. In a moment, I will give them a chance to just quickly introduce themselves. But this evening for our hour together, we are first going to hear a policy update from Finne, and then Denisha and I will dialogue for about half an hour, and then we will take audience questions. So thank you again for joining us. And let's get this show really rolling. I will turn it over to first Liv and then Denisha. And please tell our audience who you are.
Hello, my name is Liv Finne. I'm the Director for Education at the Washington Policy Center, and Marissa wanted me to add some details about myself. I have 2 grown children and a granddaughter now, and my husband and I own a small business together, and I have been working at the Washington Policy Center since 2008, and I'm a big fan of expanding school choice opportunities for families. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denisha Merriweather. I am the Director of Public Relations and Content Marketing. I have such a long title at the American Federation for Children, and we're a national nonprofit focused around school choice.
Thank you both so much for being here with us this evening. In just a second, I'm going to invite Liv to share her update with us. But before I do, I would like to note that one of the pillars of the Young Professionals work has been, over the last few years, a partnership with the Summit Sierra Charter School in Seattle. And to acknowledge their hardworking students, our YP group awarded this year our 3rd annual scholarship to them, selecting 2 really incredible students from their graduating class of 2021, and giving them $2,500 each to go towards costs of continuing education to their college tuition. This school is really amazing because located in Seattle's International District, 100% of their first graduating senior class in 2019 was accepted to 4-year colleges and universities. And this school continues to thrive today and has produced a 98% college acceptance rate in its 2020 and 2021 graduating class. So it has been just an absolutely, just a gift for the young professionals to be a small part of Summit Sierra's incredible work and to have partnered with them these past few years. So with that note about charter schools, I will turn it over to Liv to talk to us about some of the policy issues happening right now in Washington State. Liv.
I'm just going to speak very briefly about the state of school choice in Washington State. I looked up in preparation for tonight to see how we rank on the Center for Education Reform's Parent Power Index, which ranks all states across the nation on the ability of parents to choose the school that their child attends. And Washington State ranks 46th on that index out of 50 states. Washington has had a hard time giving parents the choice of school. It took us 10 years to get charter schools passed. It was done by a people's initiative. And now that we have 14 charter schools and 2 more will open next fall, and about 4,000 students are being served in those highly successful, effective alternates to the traditional public school system. Our public charter school sector is excellent. This past session in the legislature, however, it was necessary to extend the time for authorizing new charter schools under our law, and that effort was blocked by the union in the legislature. An effort to give charter schools equal funding. Charter schools do not get local levy funding that traditional schools get, and so they have to pay for, and they don't get any capital funding, so they have to pay for their rent out of operating expenses. So they're doing, with less money, they're doing a better job for families, yet the legislature doesn't see fit to give them equal funding. So charter schools have an uphill battle in Washington State. The other, though, on the bright side, there are caring lawmakers that have introduced in the last session, there were 2 bills introduced to give parents an option to send their child to a private school. One was Senate Bill 5200, sponsored by Senator Mark Schessler, which would have given families with special needs children a $15,000 scholarship to private school, and also for children in foster care. That bill was heard in committee, but it was blocked by the union. The other bill that was a school choice bill was introduced by Representative Vicki Kraft, House Bill 1215, which would have given an education savings account, an education opportunity scholarship of $7,000 to any family that wanted one. And that did not progress. But things have changed now since the school shutdown of the schools due to COVID. Over the last year and a half, parents have become aware of what's going on in the schools, who decides to open and close the schools. Here in Seattle, the union just decided to close the school on Friday. They decided they wanted a 4-day weekend. So parents are painfully aware of who is making decisions, and there are groups rising up to demand school choice in our state. So I'm very encouraged by that development. So with that, I'll stop talking and give it over to the two of you. Thank you so much for coming, Denisha. We're so delighted that you came to talk to us tonight.
Thank you. Nice.
Thank you so much, Leave. Now we're going to transition over to Denisha. Before we do, I would like to please encourage our audience to send in your questions. I am dropping an email address in our chat where you can send in anything you would like to ask. We do have dedicated time for Q&A as part of this event. Please, please, please do send us your questions to the email address in the chat, or just drop the question in the chat, whichever you prefer. But now we're going to turn it over to Denisha. So really, first and foremost, thank you for joining us. And to kind of get us rolling here, I'd really like for our listeners and our viewers to hear your story. So could you talk about where you're from, where you went to school, and how you've gotten to where you are now?
Yes, sure, certainly. Well, thanks first of all again for having me speak to your young professionals groups. It's such an honor to spotlight the new initiative that I just started this year. I'll give you a start at the beginning, I guess. So I benefited from school choice in Florida, and it really changed my life. I'll just say that I failed the 3rd grade twice going to my local public schools. I went to about 5 or 6 different elementary schools in Florida, in Jacksonville specifically. And I didn't know how to read. I failed the 3rd grade twice because I didn't know how to read. And I was very insecure. I was humiliated by my classmates because I was 2 years older than everyone in my class. And I just knew I was stupid. And it wasn't until the summer before my 6th grade year that my life changed. But to be honest, I thought that I would be like many members in my family who we lived in generational poverty for about 4 generations. And many of my family members had dropped out of school, had maybe jobs working at a fast food restaurant, and teen parents. And I thought that was going to be my destiny too. And thankfully it wasn't. But in the summer before my 6th grade year, I began to live permanently with my godmother. And one of the first things she wanted to do was get me into a quality school environment. I had gone to my local public schools that were underperforming when I went, and they still are underperforming. 90% are low income, mostly minority kids. And when I got this scholarship, it was the tax credit scholarship in Florida. It really changed my life. I went from making D's and F's, like I said, believing I would be a high school dropout, a teen parent, and be like many other members in my community, to making A's and B's and straight A's, becoming the first in my family to go to college, to graduate from high school, go to college, and earn my master's degree. And it was really all thanks to school choice. When I looked around and I saw, well, what was the difference maker? At first, I didn't know it was my school environment. I looked around and tried to figure out what was the difference maker. Why did I have such a different story than many of the people in my family and in my community? And I had to give credit to the scholarship program. I had to give credit to school choice, because if I stayed in the failing schools that I was zoned for, I would have ended up like many people in my community and in my family. And along the way, I just began to speak out. I began to share my story with anyone who would listen. At first, it was at donor events. for the scholarship program. And then it was at the state legislature for, governor candidates, testifying on behalf of the scholarship, defending the scholarship program against lawsuits. And then I had the opportunity along the way after graduating from grad school to go to Washington and work for Secretary DeVos at the U.S. Department of Education for 2 years. Did that and worked in the benefited from school choice and who credited with their development. And now I'm at the American Federation for Children, continually to do the same. And so I just launched a project called Black Minds Matter, which we'll get into a little bit later, but that's a little bit about my story and how I got thrust, I say, into this space of education reform.
So it sounds like you were assigned to a failing school, as you just spoke to. Could you tell us why you think that many kids do get assigned to failing schools?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I wish I could say it was haphazard or it was just based on living in a low income area, but unfortunately, it was really intentional back when Black people specifically in higher income neighborhoods. There was policies called redlining. In many of the school district codes, they follow the same. Redlining was outlawed, but school districts follow the same foundation, if I could say, as redlining, where students are relegated to schools in their neighborhood based off their zip code. And so if you live in a low income area, all of these low income kids are put into a school, and that makes not for a very good learning environment, because you have a lot of students who are high needs. They need a lot. They not only need education, where they're coming from more than likely single parent households that they don't have access to books. They're not receiving a wide range of language at an early age. And so you're coming with the academic struggles, yes, but you're also coming into a school with all of the social stressors too. So you're coming from a very low income neighborhood where you might be witnessing as a kid gun violence, or just community things that are not helpful for the learning process. And so when these type of things happen, when you have poor performing schools where they're not teaching academics, but you also have a case where all of these low income students are being pushed into one school based on their zip code, it doesn't make for a helpful system when it comes to educating kids. And so I am a champion for school choice. I'm a champion for parents being able to pick the school that they want their kids to go to. Luckily, some of the policies around that kind of alleviate that a little bit with open enrollment, where parents can take their kids to any school in the city, regardless of where they're zoned for, which is the open enrollment policy. But I don't think that's enough, especially for Black students. One of the things I always tell people is that the public education system is not doing a good job at all, and hasn't done a good job of educating Black students. 15 out of 100 Black students are reading on grade level. 13 out of 100 are doing math on grade level, and 9, since we're Washington Policy Institute, 9 are civics on grade level. They know their civics. And so 9 out of 100, which these are dismal statistics when it comes to Black students in particular. And I focus on Black students because obviously I'm Black, but then also, we have a major school to prison pipeline epidemic, where many of the students who are on the quote school to prison pipeline are Black, are minority students. And so it's really a facade when the public school system said they're trying to fix, larger outcomes for students, but fail to, specifically the teachers union, fail to address the inequalities that exist within the public education system. So yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons why the public school system fails, but redlining is definitely one, and just the facade of morality not really addressing the inequalities. Then the public school system doesn't educate kids well. And so if they're not going to educate kids well, parents deserve an alternative. They deserve school choice.
And so we're kind of already getting at the obvious follow-up question of how do we change this? How do we get more kids out of failing schools? And of course, the big umbrella answer that we're talking about here is school choice. But can you speak to maybe some of the more granular particulars, especially what you've seen in Florida, of how we've really started to address this problem and see change?
Yeah, well, yeah, the larger, like you said, remedy, and we do have a feasible alternative with a lot of the other policy, or I would say social justice movements that are happening nowadays. There is not really a feasible alternative. Like, we can't defund the police department because we need police officers, but with school choice, with saying that the education system is failing kids and they're not educating kids well, parents are upset and angry about a whole year where their kids were learning on a computer and just being babysat, and learning was just halted by the teachers union all across the country. Then we have a feasible alternative, and it's proven. We have school choice, and about 26 peer-reviewed studies have proven that school choice works. And I am from Florida. We have the largest, not the oldest program is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's 30 years old, but we have the largest parent choice, school choice program in the nation. And I think there are about 175,000 students participating on the tax credit scholarship, which is amazing. And one of the things that, that's awesome and helpful, and Leave was talking about it, is the parent empowerment, piece. Parents getting riled up, students getting riled up, talking about how the options around, that wanting to pick their schools is so important. And when the public is getting behind it, and when people are saying that this is something that we want, legislatures have to pay attention. They can't just ignore their constituents, like some do, but they can't just ignore a large body of people saying that they want something to happen. And so we definitely saw that happen in Florida. Lawsuit number 1, lawsuit number 2, tens of thousands of people came to the Capitol saying that they wanted the programs to stay in existence. And I would say, credit to our last gubernatorial election against Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, a white Republican and a Black Democrat, the Black Democrat who had support of all of these different celebrities across the country. People just thought he was going to win, but he ran on the simple fact that he was going to defund every choice program, charter schools, the tax credit scholarship, and all of the other scholarships that we have here. And he ran and said he was going to defund it. And a crazy thing happened. Well, I wasn't surprised, but moms, specifically Black moms, stood up and supported Ron DeSantis. He had overwhelming more Black single mom voters than Andrew Gillum, and Ron DeSantis won the election. And we credit that to the school choice moms. School choice moms, they had a taste of freedom. They felt what it was like to be able to choose the school that works best for their kid and not send them to these failing public schools. And they didn't want that to be taken away. And so I think that speaks volumes even across the country, as we hope to get programs passed in other states, in Washington, in Nebraska too. And so we have this playbook of like how it looks. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So school choice moms voted in a Republican governor.
That's right.
Seemingly as a direct response to this question of school choice.
That's right. And we see the same thing happening in Virginia this past election. Education was the number one issue voters were looking at when it came to electing oh man, I'm blanking on his last name. McAuliffe. And no, Youngkin. He was running against McAuliffe. But yeah, in Virginia. And so education is becoming a hot button issue, especially during this time of COVID. And I think it's a good season right now to be championing for more options.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. So you are the founder of an organization called Black Minds Matter. Could you tell us more about why you founded it and what you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so it actually started pretty low level as an op-ed. So I drafted an op-ed the summer of July 2020 after the protest with George Floyd and just the civil unrest that we saw not only here in our country but across the nation. And I've been working in education reform for a bit, and I was looking at everything that was happening, and really the basis of the movement was to create better options for black people, so that Black men wouldn't die at the hand of police, but also like this larger picture of Black excellence and making systems better for Black people in general. But one of the areas that was never discussed in everything that was a part of the cancel culture was education. No one talked about education. No one talked about the need to better academic outcomes for Black students. There was discussion around, Black-owned businesses, around businesses that maybe weren't as equitable as many had thought, around syrups. We saw across the country where everyone was peeling back the layers and trying to evaluate their companies, their business profiles, to see if they were actually equitable. But no one talked about the education system and how it had been failing and still fails Black students to today, and how many of the shortcomings of the K through 12 education system actually carries people forward in their adulthood. Many of the Black people who are in prison are African American males, and they read at a third grade level. These are people who are like from my neighborhood. I grew up in poverty. Many of my uncles and people in my family had gone to prison. And so I'm like, if education made a difference in my life and I didn't follow that same path, I'm seeing the outcomes, how they're bettered for Black students with these peer-reviewed studies when it comes to school choice. Why aren't people talking about education? And so I wrote an op-ed talking about all of those frustrations in real clear, just drawing those lines of similarity, saying that the two unions in America that are the most corrupt, yeah, the police union is pretty corrupt, but the teachers union is also corrupt, and we need to focus on that. And that kind of spiraled out of control. A lot of people were like, oh, I didn't know. It's like, we've been saying the same thing forever. But a lot of people liked it. And so I just started doing interviews with some of the people who've been working in this space for a long time, and launched a website, started the first ever online directory of Black-owned schools, which is a new take on school choice, because in order to be a Black-owned school, you have to be a school of choice. It's a private school or a charter school or a homeschool co-op. So we're adopting more, like, I would say, progressive language, more so of what the education space is not used to. So instead of saying school choice, we say education freedom, we say liberating Black minds, and we use the language in order to reach the community and to change the culture around education. And it's been pretty successful. We launched the website in February of this year, and so we are coming up on our year anniversary, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Can you tell us more about the language and how you're using it, leveraging it to enter into this space of dialogue and debate?
Yeah, so we have a catchy name, obviously, Black Minds Matter. And so that definitely gets us a reaction that's, either or. But that's definitely helped, especially within the Black community, when there's, trust and mistrust. Many of the organizations that support school choice are policy heavy and policy oriented. And so we are, opening up the floodgates for it to be a organization of the people. I don't know if I could say that. And so it's been quite successful. We have tons of swag. And so that's another way that we're getting at kind of changing the culture and narrative, making school choice kind of publicly appealing, with
Like a little
hoodies.
bit sexy almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it looks really cool, it looks really sexy, and people are getting behind it. We have an online store. We were accepted into South by Southwest EDU to present on a panel about Black Minds Matter there. And so we're, branching out and saying new things. And so education freedom, liberating Black minds. And I guess like Bob Marley said, emancipation from mental slavery. We, kind of stick it to parents and tell them straight up, like, your school sucks. And your kid deserves to go to someplace else. And then for the Black-owned school founders, we're elevating their voices and saying that you are a Black-owned business. Schools are businesses, you have cost revenue and all this stuff. And so you are your business, and elevating their voices, sharing their stories about why they decided to found a school, and spreading that message all around. That's gained a lot of attraction. We also say, because I'm sure everyone knows, but there's a lot of right now diversity and inclusion grants and all this stuff. And so we tell people, like, for the public school system, they're constantly trying to get more Black teachers, or we need more Black male teachers, we need more minority leaders. And it's like, no, like, the true definition of empowerment in the education space is to own and operate a school, not just to be a teacher. Not that teachers aren't bad, but that's kind of elevating the conversation, because when you talk about founding and owning a school, that's school choice. You can't own a traditional public school. And so that's been helpful. That's been very helpful.
Absolutely. Tell us more about how that's being done in terms of building up, schools who are owned by minorities, by Black individuals, as well as teachers. But you spoke specifically to schools as a business, a small business, minority owned. Just, can you tell us more?
Yeah. Well, so we have the first ever online directory on our website, blackmindsmatter.net, of Black-owned schools, and we have about 300 now, and I need to flood it with the remainder to get to our 300. But these are private schools, charter schools, and I find these schools by searching online, going through charter contracts, charters at each state department's website. So if anybody knows of a school that's started by a pastor, Black pastor, or anyone, send it to me so I can put it on the directory. And we're reaching out to them. Many of them, surprisingly, don't know that school choice is such a hot button issue, and that they need to be advocates for the policy changes. They have the heart of wanting to give back. They see the need within the community, and they want to provide an alternative. And their heads are kind of, down to the ground, getting the daily work done, trying to educate students. And so my role is to really get them engaged in the policy conversation, to help them be super advocates for school choice. Which we're just now, kind of launching this initiative, and it's going to be, I'm feeling like it's going to be really cool. Many of the school founders have requested like a gathering space, like you provided, with the young professionals of WPC, because they're in such a niche area and they don't have any place to gather. They didn't know that there were more than one of them. And so I'm working to create that space for them too, so that they can connect, have peer-to-peer mentoring, mentor other potential school founders, and become super advocates, recruit their parents, recruit their students in order to be super advocates for school choice.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, because I know here in Washington we have had Black individuals try to open charter schools and been denied. I know that Leave is familiar with a Black pastor, specifically personally, who tried to open a charter school here and was denied. So this is incredibly valuable to hear. Where are most of these Black or minority owned and operated schools located? Do you see any geographic clusters?
Yeah, so and that's a great question, because we're actually looking at that now. Most of the private schools are concentrated in Florida. but then also Milwaukee. And the one thing that I can say is the largest clusters of schools are in states that have publicly funded choice programs. So they have charter school, they have tax credit voucher or ESA private school funding mechanism. And that's where we do see the larger concentrations of Black-owned schools. There are hundreds in Florida. And then the next like small pool of concentration is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which has the oldest program in the country. And so that's really interesting because we see that we can open up the diversity amongst I call them education entrepreneurs. We can provide, many people can kind of inundate this space of education, and we can open up the field of education to more diverse leaders when we have choice programs. So that's one of the positive sides of school choice. I'm actually co-authoring a research paper right now talking about the urgency in the expansion of school options and Black empowerment through the school choice program here in Florida. So not only for parents and students wanting more options, but also education entrepreneurs being able to provide more options for families because of these school choice programs.
So these school choice programs are helping Black-owned schools.
Yeah,
which is
they
fantastic.
They would not be able to remain operable if it wasn't for school choice programs. And so that's one of the reasons why they need to be super advocates, because you never know when something might happen at the state legislature and your schools has the potential to be defunded. And so school choice is really making it possible.
Absolutely. And this is a question of freedom and independence for parents making decisions for their families, for their children, et cetera. And I love your phrase, education entrepreneurs, because that's so evocative of free market space, which is, of course, where WPC lives and moves in, and what we talk about tremendously here in the Young Professionals. But also, I mean, our philosophical lodestar, especially in the YP program, is individual dignity. And the best way to enable that is to uplift the person and to empower them. And it seems that these school choice programs that you are speaking to are doing exactly that. So that's tremendously exciting. How has your message been received, not only kind of by the traditional public school system, but also, two-pronged question here, by the Black community nationwide?
Yeah, I would say I've had a lot of positive response. Black Minds Matter, because it's so catchy, and how you say sexy. It's highly marketable. We've had a lot of a lot of marketing momentum since we launched in February. And so we're hoping to do more and to go further. We started, of course, pandemic, we are so tired of talking about COVID, but we started doing COVID. And so to have such high marketing momentum in a time where we're living in Zoom, it was just very encouraging to me about the brand. But now that we're entering into a new space, I'm hoping to do more with in-person events to get a wider net of people participating. But it's been really successful. I've had just the general public, over 20,000 contacts in our database, people who are interested in the movement, want to join the movement, want to learn more about Black Minds Matter. And so and we're also ramping up our efforts to provide more toolkits and resources. And the goal for Black Minds Matter is for us to be the voice for education for Black students. There are so many organizations out there that claim to be for excellence for Black students. We have the NAACP, but they put out a memorandum on charter schools at the federal level to block charter legislation in the states. And so it's like, do you really support the betterment of Black students if you are putting out blocks on options that are actually serving kids well. And then we have UNCF, and they're not supportive of school choice of private school choice options. They only support charter schools. And so we want to be a voice for education, and we're agnostic. I don't care where parents send their kids to school, as long as they get to pick. They can pick a private school, a charter school, micro school, homeschool, virtual school. Like, I don't care. And so that's the space that we're in right now. There are no other organizations that are advocating for all forms of school choice. They pick and choose what they want based on their political agenda. And many of them are in bed with the teachers union, and they're not supporting parents. They're not standing up for parents. They're just, being servants of the system, and parents deserve better. And so that's where largely we hope to be that voice for parents.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage our audience to please submit your questions, drop them in the chat, send them to the email that I posted at the top of the chat. We're going to be moving into some more audience Q&A time here in a few minutes, but I would like to pull in one now and just ask you, Denisha, from an audience member, what can we do to help you and to help your effort with Black Minds Matter? And please note, everyone, I've also placed the link to blackmindsmatter.net in our chat, so please go check that out.
Yeah. Well, one, I would say you can go to our website and you can join the movement. You will automatically be subscribed to our newsletter and get all updates and things that way. But also, if you want to be supportive, you can go to our online shop and or you can just send me your email address. I can give you swag for free. Give me your email so you can get I can get your address, and I can send you some swag for free. Or you can go to our shop, our online shop. It's blackmindsmattershop.com to buy some swag. But not only buy swag or I give you swag, but send us a picture of you and the merch so that we can promote it on social media, so we can really change and create a new cultural phenomenon around school choice. I am gearing up for a new, really like organizational structure for the next year. We started in February. And pretty much went with the flow. Like, anytime someone was like, oh, you should do this, I was like, yeah, that's awesome, let's do it. But moving into the next year, we're being very more strategic with our operations. And so we're supporting some and endorsing some policy initiatives across the country and putting our name stamp on that. So I would definitely say you can keep up with all the happenings by submitting your email address and on the website. And then social media is probably the next big thing that that's it. Mm-hmm.
I was muted there briefly. That's amazing. And you touch on policy issues. I'd like to recap a little bit of what Leave touched on in her policy update and pose another question to you here before we move into more audience questions. But here in Washington State, 2 of our lawmakers actually introduced bills last January, as Leave touched on, to create tax credit scholarships and educational savings accounts. These are SB 5200 and HB 1215. These would have given deserving families the resources that they needed to pull their children out of failing schools, so that they could then send them to caring and effective private schools. What would you say to the lawmakers in our state legislature who blocked those bills?
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate for the legislators who block the bill for parents. You are really sticking to the status quo, and you're not standing up for parents. You're not standing up to the system. The money is not meant for the system, it's meant for the students. Once we get away from really trying to fund institutions and funding students, we'll be in a much better headspace of thinking about the future of education in the country. We're not doing great as a country as a whole, and so we need to try something different. We've proven that school choice and policies like the tax credit scholarship and the ESA bill actually work, especially for those low income and special needs students. Their academic outcomes are significantly improved when they have the option to go someplace else. So listen to your parents, listen to the needs of students. What's being done is not working well, and they deserve something different. The money is not even meant to be for the system. It's meant to serve students. And so allow parents to pick whichever school they want their kid to go to.
I'm going to pull in an audience question now, building off of that. She writes, I'd love to hear more about some of the pro-school choice evidence, arguments, and stats that you, Denisha, think are the most impactful that she can then share with friends and family that might persuade them that school choice is something they should support.
Yeah, and I will, I'll mention, and then I'll also try to find the link to a web page that has all of these peer-reviewed studies that I'm talking about. There are about 26 studies, but we were talking about Corey DeAngelis. He's done multiple crime studies on school choice, and how when school choice programs are implemented, it's actually shown to reduce crime, and it's shown to reduce teen pregnancy. So that's one. We also see Harvard and I want to say Yale. Harvard and Yale did 2 studies on a charter school program and found that students who participated, Black boys who participated in this charter school program, were 70 times less likely to go to jail when they went to this charter school. In Florida, the great state of Florida, students who participated in the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship were, I want to say they were 80 times more likely, don't quote me, but they were like significantly more likely to graduate from high school, college, graduate from high school, go to college, get admitted into college, and then graduate from college higher than their public school counterparts. And so those are some of the just 3 examples, but there are multiple studies that are shown that that choice programs are actually doing a better job at educating kids than the public school system. Most of the choice programs are income-based or for special needs students. So these are for special populations. West Virginia actually just passed an ESA bill that serves all students in West Virginia. It's a universal ESA, which is amazing and rare in the space of education reform. Many of the programs that are passed at the state level are for specific populations of students.
Mm-hmm. And I have someone asking, would you be willing to testify on behalf of school choice bills here?
Of course. I was telling, I'm trying to pull up the website. Perfect. Here it is. I found it. So it's yeah, that was simple enough. It's school choice facts.
Slip it into our chat here.
Yeah, schoolchoicefacts.com. I believe it's it's schoolchoicefacts.org. Sorry. But yeah, I actually a funny story. So I say I was thrust into the school choice space because I got a scholarship to go to a private school and kind of figured out that this was a real thing that I wanted to be a part of, and I just kept listening and trying to understand more. But the moment, kind of the catalytic moment that happened when I decided to get more engaged in the political side and not just like share my story at a donor event, was when Governor Charlie Crist in Florida, he was governor at the time, he was a Republican, and I was this high school student who came to the Capitol, and he signed the tax credit scholarship expansion bill into law. It was such a proud moment. I was standing right beside him. He reached back and handed me the signing pen, and I'm just crazy, like just geeking out that this happened. However, the next time he ran as governor, he ran as a Democrat. And he said that he opposed school choice, that we were twisting his arm. And that was the moment where I took this issue a little bit more seriously, because I felt like it was an attack on me. I was the one who was standing right beside him, and he gave me the pin. Was I like twisting his arm? Like what was happening? And I was like a high school student at the time. And so testifying at state legislatures is something that's really important. And I say that that's something that everyone should do, even if you're not a quote beneficiary of school choice, you're an ally of school choice. You know that it means something for the larger education space. Testify, like, yes, I'll testify, but it's important for all of you to testify as well, submitting things online, submitting, letters to your state legislatures, and participating in campaigns, the phone to action campaigns. Don't ignore those emails when they come through of, email your legislator. It's all very important. Writing op-eds can go a very, very, very long way to helping push bills forward. And so it was a school choice wave last year, and we know that it's going to continue. About 19 bills passed across the country to expand school choice. And so that's just going to keep going. And I have high hopes for Washington.
Have you written an op-ed about that story with the Florida governor?
I have, and he's congressman now. He's Congressman Charlie Crist, and I've heard rumors actually that he has the nerve to try to run for governor again. Like, you are not going to get elected.
Do you have any sense of what prompted that pivot on the school choice issue?
He was a Democrat, and that's the stance of the Democratic Party. So, and yeah, he collected money from the teachers union. So, yeah.
An audience member asks, is there a kind of a branch to your organization, Black Minds Matter, here in Washington State, or perhaps the Pacific Northwest?
There is not, but if you want to start it, if you want to be the honorary member to start a chapter of Black Minds Matter in Washington, I would welcome that. Please email me. One of the goals for this next year is to start 5 to 7 local chapters or affiliates. Where I'm looking at poaching. I've adopted into the fold. He was the founder of the Black Lives Matter chapter in Minnesota. He stepped down from leadership because he tried to talk about education reform. He tried to talk about expanding school choice in Minnesota, and his Black Lives Matter program, but his chapter in Minnesota was defunded, and he was silenced. And so he stepped down from leadership. And so he's a proud advocate for Black Minds Matter now, and he's going to be an affiliate this coming year. But if you want to start one in Washington, please email me. I am actively looking to start local chapters.
That's fantastic. Incredibly exciting opportunity. I hope that some kind of partnership is able to get rolling. Do you have any additional thoughts kind of politically, how you mentioned the Black single mothers who did so much with school choice advocacy recently in Florida. Do you have thoughts on how we can continue to reach, or school choice advocates can continue to reach people like that and spread these ideas?
Yeah, and we were talking about it backstage before the program started, but really I would say the stories of beneficiaries of choice, parents and students, allies, people who wanted these, heartfelt stories, to share those, to write them up, to transcribe them, just do interviews. At the American Federation for Children, we actually have a project called the Voices for Choice, and we have about 700 stories on our website. And we give out $50 Amazon gift cards for people who share their stories. But those are really impactful because those stories can be turned into op-eds. Those stories can be testimonials at the state legislature where we're talking about. They could, those people who share their stories can sit and do radio interviews. The possibilities are endless, but I think the number one driver of any policy when it comes to education reform that's been passed, it was because of the personal narratives of parents and students that were also accompanied by the policy. We know the policy works, and so it's really hearing from the people who have benefited from it or who could benefit from it. Since Washington doesn't have a private school choice program, it would be the families who could most benefit from it, and maybe even bringing people from outside of the state to talk about the possibilities, since it's something that people aren't, they don't know what they don't know. And yeah, so I would definitely say the personal narratives is something that can shift a lot.
Mm-hmm. And as we move towards the end of our time together here, I'll offer one more question. What do you hope that people will learn from your story and from your education experience?
I really hope people learn that, one, the current system of, what we're doing right now is not serving all kids. It might be serving some kids, and that's fantastic. Some kids are thriving within the public education system, and that's amazing. But the kids who are not, the students who are struggling, the students who might need something else, they deserve that opportunity to go someplace else and explore different options. Because people from higher income backgrounds, they're able to exercise those same choices. The number one way people choose the school that they want to go to is based on their zip code. They buy a house in a wealthier part or a high middle class neighborhood where there's a high performing school. That's school choice. That's a parent actively choosing a school, and the way that they're paying for it is through their tax dollars. And so all families deserve that same opportunity. And so I really hope that from my story and from the work that many education reformers, not just me, we have a whole plethora of people who are working at this every single day, will kind of take away that one size does not fit all. And the money does not belong to the system. The money belongs to the student, and parents deserve to explore the different options that are available for their kids.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Denisha, thank you so very much for joining us this evening. Leave, thank you also. She's not on anymore, but thank you, Leave, for also speaking to us. Denisha, if you could place your email in the chat, that would be fantastic, and people can reach out to you, maybe to collaborate with your organization. Who knows? Thank you to everyone who has attended. We'll just kind of wrap it up now. I would so encourage you to check out the work of Denisha's organization, Black Minds Matter, and also to check out the Washington Policy Center Young Professionals, and all of the various events and activities that we do. For more content like this, please do join us, join our email list, consider becoming a member, get involved in our book club, and get more resources, and also places in person when we're not dialoguing from Florida to Washington, more places to build friendships and network, and hear from excellent speakers, whether virtual or otherwise. I will drop in our chat here some places where you can register for our upcoming holiday parties. We have one in the Tri-Cities on December 2nd, which will feature 3 local real estate powerhouses. And shortly thereafter, on Tuesday, December 7th, we have a Winter Wonderland on the waterfront holiday party in the Seattle area. Please do come to these and enjoy it with us. One will be coming up in Spokane on December 10th. So keep an eye out for details on that. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your evening to join us. Thank you to Leave, thank you to Denisha, and I hope you all have an excellent rest of your week. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.